The sitting is resumed. Honourable Member for Christchurch East.
Sir, I rise to conclude the debate that was started by the Honourable Prime Minister earlier this morning. And before I do that, I want to join with my other colleagues in congratulating the members who spoke for the first time in this place, and that is the Honourable Member for St. Thomas and the Honourable Member for Christchurch South. I was pleased, sir, to be able to actually be here seated to witness their presentations. And quite frankly, sir, they both sounded like old hands at it. Nobody, had we not drawn attention to it, had they not indicated in their presentations that it was their first time, I think most people would have believed that they were seasoned practitioners. So, sir, I just wish to commend them for their maiden speeches, and they have now set the bar really, really high, sir, for the others who have yet to deliver theirs. So I just want to start by expressing my congratulations. Sir, like others, I wish to join in commending you on your new position as an icebreaker, sir, and a creator of history. And I wish you a more successful tenure as the first elected Speaker of this chamber, sir. Sir, allow me as well to start by thanking the people who put me here. And it's a good place to start because it touches to the core of what it is that we're actually discussing. I went through the length and breadth of Christchurch East, and when I spoke prior to the election, certainly in the campaign leading up, I made sure every single time to thank the people who gave me the opportunity in 2018 and who gave me the opportunity again in 2022. Because at no point in time did I fool or delude myself that I got there by myself. So an election is like an equation. I believe the whole world can be brought down into mathematics. I mean, we go binary, ones and zeros, sir, and you see things, images on TV. Ones and zeros, and my voice can go down a telephone line and come on the other end, sounding just like me. Ones and zeros, sir, and a radar could read a hurricane. So we bring it back down to the ones and zeros or the equations. Wilfred Abrams plus the Barbados Labour Party equaled a victory in Christchurch East. I am certain that had it been Wilfred Abrams plus the Democratic Labour Party in the same Christchurch East, it would not have yielded the victory. So if at any point in time we change the equation, then it was not what you presented to the voter to give you the equals of victory. Now, why is that important? This legislation, this anti-defection provision in the Constitution, is not about stopping people from crossing the floor. You are free to cross the floor. It is your right, freedom of association, you are free to cross the floor. But what it says is, we must respect the integrity of the process. We must respect the dignity of the vote. And we must respect the will of the people as articulated through the election results. So if anybody, for whatever reason, wishes to cross the floor, then please go ahead. But do so knowing that you have to go back to the same people to ask them for renewed mandate for you in your current position. Ask them to vote for the new equation. You plus a new party, or you plus independent, and see if they will take you then. Now, sir, we've heard a whole lot of discussion in relation to the legality, in relation to why you're doing it, in relation to everything. And I will take this opportunity now to explain some of the concepts that people might have been slightly misguided on. If we start by agreeing, as everybody seems to have agreed, that if you cross the floor, you should go back to the electorate. Nobody that spoke here today at all disputed that. If you cross the floor, well, as a sitting MP, you should go back. Your seat should be vacated, you should go back to the vote. I don't think anybody disagreed either, but if you resign from the party, you should go back and seek a fresh mandate. So there has been no disagreement on the floor of this House in relation to those two constructs. Where the question has arisen, sir, is in relation to expulsion from the party. Multiple speakers have spoken, multiple speakers have articulated their own position on it. I think, but the last position that was put forward by the Honourable Member for St. Philip North, when she spoke about the Latimer House principles. No, sir, I tried hard to get those principles printed. I copied them, I sent them to the clerk, and I was unable to get them printed. It wouldn't print for some reason, sir. So with your leave, I'll read them off my phone because they're here. Now, if we start by understanding, sir, the Latimer House principles principally considered independence between the three arms of government. The independence of the judiciary vis-a-vis the independence of the legislature vis-a-vis the independence of the executive. So it was principally concerned with the organs of the state and not necessarily the particular individuals that made up the organs of the state. So as a lawyer, sir, you know that sometimes when a case is decided, the court will rule on the principal matters in the case, but there's something called obiter dicta. So side issues that may arise that the court may tender an opinion on, which don't form the ratio of the decision, but provide an interesting perspective on how a court may look if it was called upon to actually decide those matters. So there's a danger, sir, in looking at the obiter dicta statements and using those as the example of the principles of the case. So, correct. I don't want to go too much in the Latin, sir, because it might confuse the other people. But the Honourable Member for St. Philip North had done some research on the Latimer House principles. And had she dug a little bit deeper, she might have come across the articles that I wrote and I presented to the same Commonwealth Parliamentary Council. Sir, if we look at the part that spoke about preserving the independence of parliamentarians, it sought to reaffirm Article 9 of the Bill of Rights of 1688. 1688. So when that was done, or that was contemplated, that was back in 1688. We also need to factor, sir, that every country in the Commonwealth is not the same. So the rules, the things that we take for granted in Barbados, that our structures operate, that our systems work, it is not so in the rest of the Commonwealth. If we even use the example, sir, of the difference in thresholds, in India, for example, you can be expelled from your party simply by voting against the party line. If the party has decided to take a particular line on this, and you vote against it once, you can be expelled. We don't purport to do that, or propose to do that here, sir, in Barbados. So, in the same way that we don't hold to that simple principle, the ratio, the philosophy or the thoughts that informed this comment was a broad-based approach to the governance in relation to the entire Commonwealth, including places where there was a lot of corruption and there was need to make those adjustments. No, I'll just read it, sir, because there's a point to be made in reading it. So it was reaffirming the Article 9 of the Bill of Rights, 1688. And this article provides that the freedom of speech and debates of proceedings in Parliament ought not to be impeached or questioned in any court or placed out of Parliament. And bear in mind, sir, this is so old that freedom is spelled F-R-E-E-D-O-M-E, and Parliament is P-A-R-L-Y-E-M-E-N-T. So that should show you exactly how far back this came from. It speaks, sir, about security of members during the parliamentary term is fundamental to Parliament, to parliamentary independence, and therefore the expulsion from members from Parliament as a penalty for leaving their parties or floor crossing should be viewed as a possible infringement of members' independence. Anti-defection measures may be necessary in some jurisdictions to deal with corrupt practices. So this starts by saying, even for floor crossing, floor crossing, if you penalize the person by vacating the seat, it may be seen as an infringement on their parliamentary rights. Sir, it says laws allowing for the recall of members during the elected term should be viewed with caution as potential threats to the independence of members. And the cessation of membership of a political party itself should not lead to the loss of a member's seat. So this is pretty much suggesting that there should be no action taken at all for members who are expelled, members who are recalled, or members who cross the floor. So we can't have it both ways. You can't pick and say that out of this, in the Latimer House principles, we choose to accept that floor crossing should lead to vacation of the seat, but cessation of membership in a political party should not. That is the danger, sir, in taking things out of the context in which they were meant. Now, if I get to another thing, sir, I have heard over and over it being said that the Constitution does not recognize political parties. And it was also asked by the Honourable Member for St. Philip North, why did we do this by way of a constitutional amendment as opposed to doing legislation specifically dealing with crossing the floor and whatnot? Sir, when you're looking to do legislative amendments or you're looking to change a regime or change a structure, you try to find the easiest way to do it. The Constitution, as it stands now, under Section 45, it says it provides for the vacancy of a seat. So it provides, as it stands, that the seat of a member of the House of Assembly shall become vacant upon the next dissolution of Parliament after he has been appointed, if he resigns it in such a manner as may be provided by any law enforced in Barbados, if he is absent from citizens of the House of Assembly for such period and in such circumstance may be provided by any law enforced in Barbados, if he ceases to become a citizen of Barbados, if he contravenes the provisions of Section 59 relating to the taking of oath of allegiance, and it sets out, I'm not going to go through all, but it sets out the ways in which a seat becomes vacant. Sir, it was exceedingly convenient to simply insert it here, to create another category by which a seat can become vacant. And that was done simply, sir, by amending this section to include if a person crosses the floor, if they resign from a party, or if they are expelled by their party. So it did not make sense to create a whole new piece of legislation, the Anti-Defection Act, because that still had constitutional implications and would still have had to have been passed by a majority of 2/3 of the members in this House. So if we were going to have to bring a piece of legislation specifically only dealing with that, when the Constitution itself already addressed how a seat becomes vacant, and you would still have had to get the constitutional majority to pass it, then it made no sense to do that. It was just simpler to insert it into the Constitution as we have done. Now, the other thing, sir, so I hope that the member understands that part, sir. Now, the other thing, and people have hammered this one, that the Constitution and the laws don't respect political parties or don't recognize political parties. Everywhere, sir, that we see anything being done upon consultation with the leader of the opposition. That, sir, presupposes the existence of a political party. The composition of the Senate, sir, when the Senate is composed, it is 7 members who are appointed by the Prime Minister. 12 members appointed by the Prime Minister, 7 members appointed by the President, so independent members, and 2 members appointed by the President on consultation with the leader of the opposition. Now that, once again, presupposes that there's an opposition party. But if we go from there to specifics, because the law likes specifics, sir, under Section 21 of the Constitution of Barbados, I read, with your permission, except with his own consent, no person shall be hindered in the enjoyment of his freedom of assembly and association. That is to say, his right to assemble freely and associate with other persons, and in particular to form or belong to political parties, or to form or belong to trade unions or other associations for the protection of interests. The Constitution specifically recognizes political parties and your right to freedom of association to join or to form political parties. So I do not agree at all with anybody who says that persons are elected in their own right and there's no recognition under the laws of Barbados of political parties. I read this again, sir, because this has been a pillar for the persons who are opposing this piece of legislation. And I wonder, sir, if some of the people who are opposing bother to pick up the Constitution and actually look for the relevant section and read it, because it wasn't that hard to find, sir. It was only Section 21 of a whole lot of other sections. I read it again, sir. Except with his own consent, no person shall be hindered in the enjoyment of his freedom of assembly and association. That is to say, his right to assemble freely and associate with other persons, and in particular, to form or belong to political parties, or to form or belong to trade unions or other associations for the protection of his interests. Sir, with respect to spelling out political parties, the Honourable Member for St. Thomas ably dealt with that initially, and he said it would be invidious, sir, to refer specifically to political parties, because you then limit the parties which are recognized by law to those which are mentioned in the Constitution. This recognizes generally the right of association to belong to and to form political parties. So we go now. Every single one of us, every single one of the members who are here today, sir, wrote to the Barbados Labour Party or communicated with the Barbados Labour Party indicating their intention to run as a candidate for the Barbados Labour Party. In some constituencies, sir, there was more than one person, and a number of people indicated their intention. And there was an internal vote where a nomination process was had, the persons were nominated, they were seconded, and then they competed against each other according to the rules of the Barbados Labour Party to secure the nomination for that party. Every person who emerged as a successful nominee for a branch then had to be approved by the National Council of the Barbados Labour Party. So every single one of us who contested the election was ratified by the Barbados Labour Party as a candidate. Not one person who appeared on the BLP ticket, or not one person who is here, did so without seeking and obtaining the ratification from the Barbados Labour Party. It is invidious, sir, having gone through that process, where you came to the party through its rules, you applied under its rules, you got approval according to its processes, and then you signed the covenant, signed the manifesto as one of the candidates, saying this is our oath to the people of Barbados, this is our solemn covenant to the people of Barbados, to then come and say afterwards that the fact of your election as a Barbados Labour Party candidate should not carry weight if you decide to cross the floor, because you were elected in your own name and the ballot box, the ballot did not have Barbados Labour Party on it. I know, sir, in the canvassing, as I introduced myself to new voters, because by now, the people who were there before know who I am. I said, I am Wilfred Abrams, the Barbados Labour Party candidate for Christchurch East, and I'm asking for your support. When we did canvassing, sir, on behalf of other MPs, we went into their constituency, and I said, I am Wilfred Abrams from the Barbados Labour Party, seeking your support for our candidate X or our candidate Y, not X or Y by themselves. I identify myself as part of the party unit, and canvass the support for the person as the representative of the party into the next election. So it's about fairness. Every single one of us did it. Every single one of us at some point in our speech said, vote for the Barbados Labour Party, vote for me. Vote for leadership, vote for me. I heard an innovative ending that I copied, and I said, if you don't vote for party, and you don't vote for individuals, vote for Barbados. If you vote for party, vote for the Barbados Labour Party. If you vote for individuals, please vote for me. There is no confusion by anybody who went in to place that X as to who they were actually voting for and what collision of circumstances they were voting for. They were voting, go back to the equation, X plus Y equals victory. William Duguid, Christchurch plus Christchurch West equals victory for Barbados Labour Party. Colin Jordan plus St. Peter equals victory for the Barbados Labour Party. Sonia Brown plus St. Philip North equals victory for the Barbados Labour Party. When you look at the rationale for anti-defection legislation, the anti-defection legislation is never stated as being to stop persons from crossing the floor, right? It's not stated as being to stop persons from crossing the floor. It is usually stated that it preserves the democratic process, it preserves integrity of the process, it ensures political stability, it respects the electoral mandate. All these things are above the individual and even above the party. These concerns are leveled at the philosophy of government, the philosophy of political stability, and the philosophy of respecting the electoral mandate. It is almost vain. It's almost vain, sir, for someone to expect that having come into government on that philosophy, that you can discard the philosophy and its moorings and its associations and say, I still wish to continue in my seat. Sir, I've heard people in the campaign say, you know what, I ain't gonna vote for X, or I would not vote for X, but me as my girl. I would not vote for Y, but I support the Barbados Labour Party. Those persons express their intention. There are some core supporters of the Democratic Labour Party, sir, core, who will never vote anything but Democratic Labour Party. So they give the vote to their candidate based solely on the fact that they're from the Democratic Labour Party. If I may inject a little bit of humor, sir, the first ever day I canvassed in my life, I was canvassing for Hudson Griffith in the by-election after the death of David Thompson. And they put me to canvass Poolan, pool number 2. I went and I parked on the bottom of the gap, at the very bottom of the gap. And I got out and I went to the first house, and I should have been aware that something was up because there were 2 black flags on the patio. On the patio, on the left side of the door, that had a picture of Earl Barrow. On the right side of the door, they had a picture of David Thompson. When I rap, I'm new, I'm fresh, I'm enthusiastic. I believe I could convert anybody. I rap on the door, sir. And the man opens the door. And as he opens the door, I look past him, I see a shrine to David Thompson. Pretty much on his sideboard, a shrine. So I said to him, sir, I am Wilfred Abrams from the Barbados Labour Party, and I've come to canvass support for our candidate, Mr. Hudson Griffith. And the man looked at me, he said, you serious? I said, yes, I am. He said, you know me? I said, no, I don't. I can't remember the name now, so I'll give him a name. He said, I am Reginald Brathwaite, the first man to ever nominate Errol Walton Barrow, the Dipper, the son of Jesus Christ. That, I stand here, sir, put my hand on the Bible and tell you that's what was said. I thought to myself, what do I do now? And I dug in. And I said, does that mean you would not give the vote for Hudson Griffith? Sir, to say, the man said, and these are the words, if the DLP ran a dog out here, I will vote for it. And I said, sir, is there anything you can do to change your mind? At which point, he obviously got tired of me, and he washed me off in curse. I've never been cursed so bad. It was a proper St. John cursing, with some words that came from St. John. The man washed me off, and as I walked up the gap, figuring I wasted my time there, I walked to the next house. He walked behind me, and he proceeded to curse me every time I knocked on the door. So I then called back to the branch office and said, okay, I had a wall here. Can you all send me someplace else? I went to try my luck elsewhere. But the point I'm making is that man didn't want to hear nothing about our candidate because he was voting for the DLP. No matter who ran there, that person was getting in and getting his vote, and almost the votes all up there based on the fact that they were from the Democratic Labour Party. Equally, sir, we got some hardcore ones in the BLP. They got BLP people who, if you go by the house, they will wash you off and curse too. So we cannot ignore the fact that a section of Barbados, hardcore down the line, will cast their vote for the party. If some of the MPs are good, if some of the MPs are engaging, if they go to community activities, if they go to church, if what, they get some personal votes. People vote for you because they like you. They vote for you because they like you. But I have not yet, and I don't fool myself, I don't take my personal votes to carry me across the line. Cannot do it. I count my personal votes plus the votes for the party. The votes for the party, quite frankly, outweigh my personal votes by a good set. But I do my best, as do the rest of us. So, if we look at the legislation, this is simply honoring the intention of the voters who put their X. Barbadians vote for leadership. If we use the example of the previous leader of the opposition, the previous leader of the opposition, sir, ran, I won't talk about his misadventures before, but he ran successfully on a Barbados Labour Party ticket in 2018. And he came back and ran successfully on a Barbados Labour Party ticket in 2022. Having run successfully on the Barbados Labour Party ticket, he sought to change sides. He crossed the floor literally in the crossing the floor sense. He went and sat on the other side and took up the position as a leader of the opposition, having joined the Democratic Labour Party. We all heard the public comments. Almost everybody said he should go back to the electorate. There was no voice that was not self-serving from that side that was defending the crossing of the floor in those circumstances. I would hazard a bet that if he had contested the last election back in the same Christchurch South, he would have lost. And I think he understands that he would have lost, which is why he sought his fortunes elsewhere. He sought his fortunes in what should have been the safest seat for a Democratic Labour Party candidate. I don't think any leader of the Democratic Labour Party ever lost his seat in St. John. So he went to the safest possible seat and sought to get the mandate from the people there, and was unsuccessful. If that does not explain everything as why you should go back to the people of Barbados for a renewed mandate in crossing the floor or resigning or being expelled, I don't know what is. Because if you are so comfortable and confident in what you're doing and you believe that your personal power and vote pull is so significant, then this should not trouble you at all. These provisions should not concern you at all. You said, I no longer wish to align myself with X party, and I am so confident. I'm prepared to take that chance. Let me go back to the polls. Nobody, the fact that we're arguing this means that almost everybody, including the persons who are arguing it or who have concerns about it, recognize that their personal brand will not survive the test if going back to the public for a mandate having crossed the floor or running on a ticket different to the one you were elected under. Now, sir, if I go through the actual terms of the legislation, sir, what does it do? Well, we are going to seek an amendment, sir, when we get into committee. 45D1, which currently states that where circumstances referred to, in inserting into section 45, the additional categories that will cause the vacation of the seat, we insert, if he, the person, having been a candidate of a political party and elected to the House as candidate of that political party, resigns from that political party, is expelled by that party, or crosses the floor. So I think that's clear, and I've already explained why we're going with all three. We also amending the section, sir, 45D. So vacation of the seat where the member resigns, is expelled, or crosses the floor. Where the circumstances referred to in section 45(1)H arise, that's what I just read. The leader, it currently says the leader in the House of the party as a candidate of which the member was elected, but that is going to be the leader of parliamentary business of the party as a candidate of which the member was elected, shall inform the speaker in writing of those circumstances. So the leader will say, this person has crossed the floor. Mr. Speaker, I wish you to make a declaration in that respect. The leader will say, this person has resigned from the party. Mr. Speaker, I wish you to make a declaration in that respect. The leader will say, Mr. Speaker, this person has been expelled from the party. I wish you to make a declaration in that respect. And you, sir, at the very next sitting of the House, after being so informed, shall make a declaration that the member has resigned from or has been expelled by the party or has crossed the floor, as the case may be. Now, sir, if the member has crossed the floor, straight away, the seat is vacated. If the members cross the floor, straight away, the seat is vacated and we go to a by-election. Where the declaration is that the person has been resigned or been expelled from the party, then that person has 14 days within which to contest the declaration that they've been expelled from or resigned from the party, sir. If they do not contest it, they're deemed to have accepted it, and the seat is vacated again. Where, sir, within that 14-day period, that grace period, the member does file in a court of law proceedings to challenge the declaration of the expulsion or the declaration of resignation, sir, then he doesn't vacate the seat. He loses his right of audience. So while the proceedings are pending, he cannot appear in the House and speak from his seat. But in all other respects, until the court rules on it, he continues as the elected member for that seat. That changes only on the decision of the court in that respect. If the court decides that he should not have been expelled or he actually did not resign, then he retains his seat in the House. If the court upholds the fact that he has been expelled or he has resigned, then the seat is vacated and we go to the by-election, sir. I'm trying to explain this carefully so that people listening can actually picture it and understand where we're going, sir. And that basically is it. That basically is the substance of what we're saying. So, if you, the member, are contesting your resignation, and somebody did ask me, why would they contest a resignation? So a resignation can be explicit or it can be implied. So if I write a resignation letter saying I resign from this political party, then it's clear. If, sir, I have made utterances or said things or implied that I had resigned, I can challenge and say, but I did not actually resign. If I have been expelled, I can challenge my expulsion. Now, there was a suggestion, sir, that the legislation should have in it that the person is expelled following due process, etc., etc. But, sir, the Constitution assumes that due process is followed. So, on a breach of any constitutional right, one of the first things you look at is the due process. Was everything that was done? In the case of an expulsion, was the person heard? Were they given a chance to answer the charges? Were they given a chance to represent themselves? Sufficient time to prepare the defense? Whatnot, whatnot. And it follows closely the provisions of the Administrative Justice Act, but this not being a public body, a political party not being a public body, it doesn't fall under the AJA, but the same principles of natural justice, sir, will actually apply to the proceedings that led to your expulsion or the proceedings that led to the determination of your resignation. So the other thing as well is that person's question, if the court takes such a long time, then there should be a need for a certificate of urgency in there or something to make the court operate faster. But it is generally known, sir, that constitutional provisions are always certified as urgent. And the court treats them as such. Constitutional matters take priority over other matters. So it was deemed, if that is the existing case, and you put any of those provisions, either treat it as urgent, if you put either of those provisions in, it would suggest that the same did not hold true for the other provisions of the Constitution. So it was not necessarily complicate things because they're already there, right? So, sir, it is, at the end of the day, this is probably one of the most simple adjustments we're gonna make to the Constitution to correct an existing situation. But as my honorable friend from St. Michael's South said, it is perhaps one of the most important because it does not simply touch and concern the member who is affected. It touches and concerns the will of the people who put him there. We always say, the Prime Minister made a point of saying it, if it be the will of the people and we're elected, we will do X. She was clear to not take for granted the will of the people because ultimately it is their will. So by the will of the people in Christchurch East, Wilfred Abrams of the Barbados Civil Party was elected to represent their interests in the House of Assembly, and I eternally thank them for it. However, if I cease to become a member of the Barbados Civil Party, was it the will that Wilfred Abrams, independent, or Wilfred Abrams, DLP, enjoy the same confidence? There's only one way to figure that out. You will only know that in one way. That's by going back to the same people who put you there and saying, my circumstances have changed. Do you still want me? Is this still your will? It should not be something that you're afraid. If you're brave enough to cross the floor, then go right back to the people who put you there. It is only fair. Otherwise, you are disrespecting entirely, sir, their mandate. No, sir. we have to put the voter at the center of the whole process, right? The elections, sir, are about the will of the people and about the will of the individual voter. 1 + 1. For me, sir, I had to get 1 + 1 + 1 to make over 3,000 and something votes. So 3,000 and something individuals voted for me. People didn't vote in blocks. So it wasn't that 10 people, one person went and cast a vote for 10. I had to convince a whole set of people to go there and put the vote. It was not about me. It was about their choice as to who to represent them. In the history of Christchurch East, sir, we've had Sir Richard Cheltenham, who we honored yesterday. We've had Edwin Talma. We've had Dennis Lowe. We've had a whole set of people. Reginald Farley. The will of the people spoke. The people spoke their will over and over in putting persons there and changing persons according to who they wanted or what they thought represented their best interests at any particular time. If we as the persons entrusted with that seek to change any of the things that we represented as being our ethos, as being our philosophy, as being our platform, then we owe it to the persons who paid for our election with their vote to go back to them and tell them things have changed. In law, sir, there's something called misrepresentation. If I say I will do X, and I say I will do Y, there's a contract, it's a binding contract. And you pay me to do X and to do Y, and I do other than X and Y having accepted your payment, that's misrepresentation. And it can avoid the contract. Our election, sir, is bought by the votes of the people. It is a contractual arrangement. I offer them myself and my platform and my party, and they accept me by virtue of their vote. If I change the terms and conditions of which their vote paid for my election, and I purport to continue, I have misrepresented myself and what I stood for. To avoid that misrepresentation, the only thing you can do is go back and say, the contractual terms have changed. These are the new contractual terms. You're still willing to pay for it? You're still willing to give me the vote? Sir, I hope that I've made it really clear. What I will say as well, sir, and for those who, there has been some concern about the threshold for expulsion. And I went through a number of countries, sir. I looked at India, Bangladesh, Kenya, Malaysia, Pakistan, Maldives, Belize, Fiji, Nigeria, Seychelles, Malawi, Ukraine, and pretty much all of these countries require persons to go back to the polls if they vacate, if they cross the floor, or if they're expelled. And as I said, sir, the threshold for expulsion in some of these countries is so low. It is so low. We encourage, we advocate, we embrace different political positions. I can tell you, sir, that in critical matters, the Prime Minister polls us. Up to this piece of legislation, we were polled in the parliamentary group. Who's supporting? What are the issues? And where some issues were actually raised, then it was attempted to take those into consideration in the actual wording of the legislation. Persons indicated less than a complete support on this. Nobody's being penalized for it. In the majority of critical matters that come before this chamber, so especially ones that go to select committee, because the party deems that they're so revolutionary or they have such public import that it should not only be decided by the 30 members in this House, but the public of Barbados should get a chance to weigh in before they even get here. We are polled as to our position on the pieces of legislation. And in many instances, when the poll happens and persons tender their opinions, their objections, if they have critical objections to it, then invariably those objections are factored in to the actual legislation that comes here to then go to the people of Barbados. So I am comfortable, sir, that the threshold for expulsion not being the bare bones threshold in many other countries, that we do not run the risk of political victimization. Sir, if I can actually just read the grounds for expulsion, sir, from the Barbados Labour Party, sir. This is probably trying to get things printed, sir. Sir, I'll paraphrase. I can't find it right here immediately. But the grounds are, if you speak on somebody else's platform, if you disparage the party, if you act in a way inimical to the interests of the party, pretty much the same sort of things, sir. Any club. You belong to any club. A football club, a cricket club, any club, the lodge, Girl Guides. If you act in such a way as to bring the organization into disrepute, or you so run against the principles of the organization, you get expelled. The fact that you quarrel at the AGM doesn't mean you can get expelled. The fact that I might like the honourable member for St. Thomas as the treasurer and not the honourable member for the city, and I might vociferously support the honourable member for St. Thomas as treasurer, and he doesn't get it, and I carry on the fact that he should have gotten it, doesn't mean I can get expelled. Expulsion usually carries such a high threshold. And once again, even your expulsion, even in a private organization, your expulsion, you're expected that the rules of natural justice would have applied to your expulsion. So it's not that people get vexed, sir, and we have a cuss out, and then somebody says, you gone. No matter how bad that cuss out is, you gotta pause, you gotta serve the person a written notice of the charges against them. You have to give them ample time to prepare their defense and an opportunity to be heard. If after all of that, sir, 2/3 of the member of the party vote against you, then, sir, you shouldn't be there, truthfully. I'm being serious. If you get to the point of getting 2/3 of a disparate amount of people, a diverse section of people, to vote for your expulsion, then, sir, quite frankly, your interests and the party's interests are no longer ad idem. They're colliding to the point where it is impossible for you to continue. I think that will satisfy, sir, the irrevocable and irretrievable breakdown of the union between you and your party. So, sir, having said all of that, oh, the last thing, sir, it was raised by the honourable member for Christchurch West that this does not contemplate coalitions or independence or whatnot. Sir, I accept that. I accept it does not. Many other pieces of legislation do. This deals with the situation that obtains now, and it was intended in drafting this that all of the other considerations will be taken into account in the final draft constitution. So if things are raised, matters are raised, we see a need to relook this. If there are other considerations to come, and if we're planning for the future, then those can be crafted into the new constitution, which the Prime Minister has told me and instructed me, come hell or high water, must be in place well before November 30th this year, or 60th anniversary. So it must be completed in such a manner as to go back to the public, have full public discussion and discourse on it well before November 30th, 2026. So by November 30th, 2026, all of the other concerns and scenarios that can arise would have been addressed, sir, in the Constitution. We go back to the public with it, and the public, if it's not satisfied, can have its vent then, and it be taken into consideration. So this draft was meant to just address the current situation right now until we can fully redraft the Constitution and take all the other matters into consideration. So I hope, sir, that I've explained that everybody can understand, and I hope that I've allayed the concerns of the Honourable Member of St. Philip North. And, sir, with that, wish to conclude the debate on it say I am firmly in support of this and beg that this be read a second time. I thank you.
The question is that this bill be read a second time. All those honorable members in favor, please say aye. Aye. Those against, please say no. Me think the ayes have it.
I beg that you do not leave the chair and House resolve itself into committee for further consideration of this bill.
Second. The question is that the Speaker do not leave the chair and the House resolve itself into committee for further consideration of this bill. All those honorable members in favor, please say aye. Those against, please say no. Me think the ayes have it.
This Honourable House is now in committee.
Mr. Chairman, Clause 1. Perfect.
Mr. Chairman, I beg to move that clause 1 to stand part.
The question is that Clause 1 stand part. All honourable members in favour, say aye.
Aye.
Honourable members against, say no. Methinks the ayes have it.
Clause 2.
Mr. Chairman, I beg to move that clause 2 stand part.
The question is that Clause 2 stand part. All honourable members in favour, say aye. Honourable members against, say no. Methinks the ayes have it.
Mr. Chairman, I beg to move an amendment to clause 3. So 45D1, sir, would now read, where circumstances referred to in section 45(1)H arise, the leader in the House of Parliamentary Business of the party of the candidate who was elected member, and it continues there, but for completeness I read it, shall inform the Speaker in writing of those circumstances, and the Speaker shall at the sitting of the House next after he is so informed make a declaration that the member has resigned from or has been expelled by the party or has crossed the floor as the case may be. I beg to move that clause 3 as amended stand part.
The question is that Clause 3 as amended stand part. All honourable members in favour, say aye. Honourable members against, say no. Methinks the ayes have it.
Report, sorry.
Mr. Chairman, I beg to move that you do not report to His Honour the Speaker the passing of one bill in committee with amendments.
The question is that I do not report to His Honour the Speaker the passing of one bill with amendments in committee. All honourable members in favour, say aye. Honourable members against, say no. Methinks the ayes have it.
Committees has reported the passing of one bill with amendments in committee. Honourable Member for Christchurch East.
Mr. Speaker, I do move.
Beg the third time. Third time. Beg to read a third time.
Right. Sorry, Mr. Speaker, I beg to move that this bill be read a third time.
The question is that the bill be read a third time. All those honorable members in favor, please say aye. Those against, please say no. Me think the ayes have it. Honorable Member Christian, please.
Mr. Speaker, as this bill requires Sorry, Mr. Speaker, I beg to move that this bill do not pass and be cited as the Constitutional Amendment Act 2026.
Mr. Speaker, as you are aware, this bill is being passed under Section 49(2) of the Constitution and therefore requires the 2/3 majority, and we need to have a voice vote.
This bill requires a 2/3 majority, so there needs to be a vote.
Ms. Motley, who is coming in on Zoom. Aye. Ms. Bradshaw.
Aye.
Mr. Abrams.
Aye.
Mr. Simmons. Aye. Mr. Humphrey.
Aye.
Ms. Husbands.
Aye.
Mr. Weir.
Aye.
Mr. Ford.
Aye.
Mr. Ford.
Aye.
Mr. Griffith.
Aye.
Mr. Jordan.
Aye.
Mr. Strawn.
Aye.
Ms. Cattle.
Yes.
Ms. Gooden Edgell.
Aye.
Mr. Gooden Edgell, sorry.
Aye.
Ms. McConney.
Aye.
Mr. Gibbs.
Aye.
Mr. Blackman.
Aye.
Mr. Phillips.
Aye.
His Honor, Mr. Rowe.
Aye.
Mr. Sutherland.
Aye.
Ms. Moore.
Aye.
Mr. Braffett.
Aye.
Ms. Trotman.
Aye.
Mr. Lashley.
Aye.
Mr. Nichols.
Aye.
Dr. Monroe Knight.
Aye.
Mr. Prescott.
Aye.
Mr. Ishmael.
Aye.
Dr. Springer.
Aye.
Dr. Duguid.
Aye.
Dr. Brown. Mr. Speaker, the results of the division. 29 honorable members voted in favor. There was 1 absentee. And therefore, this bill, having had 29 members voting in favor, passes the 2/3 threshold required by the Constitution.
This bill, having reached the required threshold, now stands passed. Honorable Leader of Government Business.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I beg to move this suspension until 7:15.
The question is that this honorable chamber be suspended until 7:15 p.m. All those honorable members in favor, please say aye. Those against, please say no. Me think the ayes have it. This honorable chamber stands suspended until 7:15 p.m.